One.
I'm Mark Sant, your program coordinator for Fine Arts. I've been asked to talk about how assessment and the assessment process affects, my fine arts program. It might seem out of sync that an arts program would want to do an assessment task at all, but we do. We're a qualitative field, not quantitative. Very little what we do has any hard numbers to it. So to know how people are actually doing, separate from the students, whether we're actually educating them to the point where they can move on to the next level of education, and to see that we are making a difference, I need to know that they're actually touching them in some way. We do assessment in several different ways here. We assess our curriculum, making sure that we're staying contemporary, making sure that what we're offering is actually transferring to other schools, that students are benefiting from what we're offering. We then assess each class to make sure that we're communicating the same or very similar ideas on the disciplines as a student moves through our 2+ years of education here. If they're getting the same message on drawing and all these different aspects of making fine art from every class, there's a better chance they'll actually grasp the important parts of that in the time they're here than if they're hearing different messages or even contradictory messages along the way. I was asked also to talk about writing as part of this assessment. During my studio classes, I actually have my students write. I think a lot of the way students make fine arts, a lot of the way they do the research they need for a drawing or a painting is the same way they do research for writing. There's a lot to be learned there. I stress both academic solidity and fine art solidity of my students. They have to be good students. They have to be smart in every way. They have to know how to think in order to be effective as art students. We do assessment at the end of each semester where we have a student show, and I get to walk through and see how each class performed relative to each other class prior and relative to what I think is going on in the discipline contemporarily, and really not just me, but we as a group think what's going on in the discipline. I walk through with my faculty, I walk through with my dean. We get to take a look at what's working, what's not working, and then can make adjustments as needed, if needed, where we have to go. The last thing I did was change the graduation requirement for our fine arts majors. Our school has a 10-page graduation requirement to prove literacy, and it's an after-the-fact kind of thing that you get through your 2 years and here you go, and let's hope you've learned enough to move on. It wasn't preparing my students to transfer to the next 2 years of their art education. I've made it so that now they have to write a 5-page artist statement, placing themselves in a context, into the history of art, into a history of art, using references. They have to know how to find how other artists in history have done what they're doing, and they're doing it. Their influences, people they don't like, they have to look at that. They have to write a 5-page annotation of all the work they include in their graduating show, explaining the whys and whens and wheres of each piece of artwork. They have to do a public presentation on themselves in their work, open to the school. So they have to learn to document their work and to be able to communicate about their work in public. And then they have to do a oral defense in front of faculty, where we get to look at their work that's up on the wall in the gallery, and we get to assess at that time we get to culminate with them what they've done. Do they understand what they've learned? Are they ready to communicate what they've learned? And are they ready for the next 2 years? And generally, we've been very happy with what they've done. We videotape each of these, all the public processes and the oral defenses, and I have a copy of their written work. I also ask the students at the end of this process to assess the process. I ask them to take a look at what they've done and why they've done it, and if they could improve in any way, what would be a better addition to this process or not. But that's pretty much what we do.